Welcome back to another episode of the Humble Hustle Podcast. We're your hosts, Nick and Kayla.
Hello, hello.
And what's going on today?
We have a guest in the studio with us. We have Luke Brownell from Spitfire Design. I met Luke through BNI. I'm not officially joined yet, but I will be joining soon. I've been visiting, and we're super excited to have him in the studio today to talk about some branding and logo stuff. So excited. So Luke, tell us a little bit about yourself.
What's up? What's up? Yeah, I'm Luke Brownell, and I'm the founder and creative director of Spitfire Design Company. And we are a small graphic design studio based in Massachusetts, and we specialize in graphic design, logo design, brand design stuff, basically creating cool, bold designs for our customers.
Love that. Yeah. And I love the name too. And I know the story behind it, but can you talk to us about Spitfire? Because I think it's such a cool name.
Yeah, it was kind of inspired by my mom a little bit. And she was a horse trainer back in the day. She told me, she rode Spitfire back in the day. So I was like, it's kind of a cool name. And honestly, I was just kind of looking for something kind of cool, something to design around. Didn't want to use my name as like the lead for the company name. So yeah, that was kind of just an inspiration.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. It's so unique. And it's really catchy. Like immediately, like you see Spitfire, you're like, ooh, that's fun. Like it's spicy.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Yeah, I know. And there's like Spitfire wheels for skateboarding and stuff. So
okay. I didn't even know that.
So yeah, that was one thing that I didn't take into account too much. But other than that, there's not too much overlap. So yeah, it's
that's
been good.
awesome.
Yeah, the reception's been really good. People dig it. So
I love
thank you.
that. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So tell us, like, how did you get into design?
So yeah, I've always, since I was a kid, drawing, and always enjoyed just kind of sketching things out. And I come from my mom's side is a bunch of artists, and my grandfather actually co-founded a marketing agency in Burlington, Vermont, back in the 1960s, like Mad Men, like suits and like just marketing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, back in the day.
Old school.
Yeah, then they helped bring like the vacation tourist sector, like opening that up for Vermont. And so yeah, it's kind of in my blood, but just something that was kind of always around. And yeah, like my background was basically like when I was a kid, just loved sports and playing basketball, and got offered a handful of opportunities to play in like Division III sports. So yeah, kind of just was like, all right, graphic design, go towards that. And I don't recommend that as like a way to choose a major. Definitely do some more research. And but yeah, I was kind of like, all right, we'll see where this goes. And yeah, I've just been kind of passionate for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so after college, when you graduated, what was your, like, I guess, what was your intro job?
Good question. So let's see. So I got to school right around 2010, and that was around the, that latest recession. And yeah, I just had a hard time. It felt like you needed like 2 years of professional experience to get a job in an agency at that point. And this is back when like, Facebook was still new, and back in like 2006. So freelancing and working from home was not a thing. So I really was like, all right, what am I going to do? So I actually coached basketball for a couple of years at the high school level, which was a lot of fun. And eventually got into printing, doing commercial printing, working in a couple of different print factories over the next course of like next 10 years, and getting a crash course in like all the technical side of the production and, printing as a whole other phase after the design phase. So it was invaluable as far as what I do now. And yeah, happy to dive in more into that.
Yeah. When did you decide I want to start my own thing? Like, when did you break off on your own?
When did I break off after my, well, COVID happened, and kind of got forced into it. So it was a crazy thing. So I had done some freelancing gigs. When you go to school for graphic design, you kind of just get randomly asked by your friends and family sometimes to do stuff. So I kind of had this idea of like, oh man, I like this fantasy of like, I don't even know how I would do that sometime. Cause like, I had been doing my career in the pre-press industry for like I said, 8 to 10 years. And you get to a certain point where you're making a certain salary and you're like, I don't know how this is ever going to transpire to transitioning to something else. And yeah, 2020 happened and it was wild. So we were right in the, wife and I, we were in the middle of buying a house. Our son was 1.5 years old. We had to fast track the whole closing process, closed on a Friday, celebrated that weekend, and then I got laid off. So like the government shut down and the whole thing popped off. And I was like, okay. So I was like happy, but like spiraling too.
Yeah.
And my wife, Sierra, she was like super cool and just like, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And so basically I looked at it like, all right, I got some time, I got unemployment coming. What am I going to do? And one of my best friends in the world, Andrew, shout out. He was like, yeah, man, you went to school for graphic design. Why don't you refocus on that? So, yeah, basically bought a new laptop and got to work. The idea was to just improve my portfolio and spruce up, the current projects that I had. And it was just kind of a snowball effect. Like everyone started a small business at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of side hustles sparked up. So I had some friends. So just trying to get the word out there through social media. And yeah, after about 1 year or two, actually a year went by and I got hired. It worked. I got a job for working in the trade show industry as a graphics manager.
Okay.
Did that for about 6 months. And then the Delta variant came out.
Yeah.
And
damn.
The trade show industry was a tough one to get into. I'll be honest. I mean, it centers around people meeting in a large area.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were shut down right away again. And he was like, sorry, man, you're laid off again. So my wife and I kind of made a decision. She's like, you were way happier working for yourself, doing something that you believed in. And I was getting to the point where I was working and selling services. So like designing is different. Like selling services is different than just designing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's kind of how it all transpired. But yeah, I wish I could say like I had a plan. I worked really hard and, but yeah, I had an opportunity and I took it and it's worked out so far. So it's good.
No, that's so similar to how I kind of did mine in a lot of different ways because you, have a clearly really supportive partner who encouraged you and was 100%. Like, you can do this. Yeah. I had that too with my boyfriend. Like he has a steady 9-to-5 construction job. Yeah. And I told him, I was like, this is going to be kind of touch and go. Like, or do you think, we were both still living with our parents at that time. Yeah. So we had that advantage, especially I had that advantage where I'm not paying rent, very low risk, but I was really unhappy at my job that I was at. And I was like, I was getting my resume ready and I was applying to jobs and nothing really stuck out to me. I wasn't like, yeah, I'm so excited to apply for this job. It was just like, I'm just trying to get out of where I currently am. Yeah.
And that's not a good feeling either.
No.
You're just like trying to figure out what you're doing. Yeah.
And then I had one of my mentors tell me like, why don't you start your own thing? Like similar to your friend Andrew. Yeah. Someone told me like, try doing this on your own. And that was the push that I needed. And same as you, like you just jump off the cliff and, build the plane as you're flying it kind of a thing. Like I had no plan whatsoever. Yeah. And it's scary. And especially you have a wife, you have a kid, you have a family to support. I mean, I didn't have any of that. So mine was low risk, but it's just that it's a risk.
Yeah. I mean, all risk is relative. And, yeah, that's my number one tip. And people will say like, how do you start this? And it's like, you marry well. Okay. Like, get yourself a down, she's down to ride or die girl.
Yes.
And, but no, so my wife, Sierra, she's amazing. So she's a very entrepreneurial mind in general, working in the financial industry. And she was really just like, well, right now we're good. We'll take it month by month. And she was really communicative. So she helps me on all the finances stuff, like the accounting stuff. Like it was really, really hard for me to do all of that. She helps me balance the books and things like that. So that it's just huge having that support system. And she used to be like a financial wellness coach for like multiple family, like a big book of business, and just helping multiple people with budgeting issues and that kind of stuff. So it's just invaluable, I just like someone, and to have someone who was like, she encouraged me to get into BNI and explore like networking opportunities and My brother-in-law, he owns a tattoo shop. So like all these connections, like, so yeah, it's kind of all
that's
intertwined.
cool.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like my mom and dad growing up were also self-employed, which I never really took into account, but it's kind of makes sense. Like I don't really like authority too much. And Spitfire, I lost my job and it's like Spitfire, Yeah. So yeah. But at the same time, I really just like working with small businesses and trying to help them kind of accomplish similar goals. So
Yeah.
and it's good because it's like I get it at that point too, where people are like stressed out about it, and it's just like, yeah, I understand. We'll help you through it, and
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I love
a lot
that.
of fun.
Yeah. How can you talk to me a little bit about, so we've talked about this in previous episodes. People, when they hear the word brand, they think logo, but it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about, I know you have different things that you do for your clients. Can you talk a little bit about like what a typical process might look like for you? Because you build things from scratch, but you also, update logos or, kind of rework things. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do specifically
Maybe
for
just an
your
overview
clients?
of your services too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of things start with the brand design stuff, like building, everyone needs a logo, but it's also all of the touch points in your business. So we try to look at, well, let me back up. First, I always talk to people about their business first and what's going on. How do they actually make money? Like, walk me through that process. What are some different pain points, challenges? Are they like receiving, frequent questions about the same thing, communication things? And then from there, it's like we try to capture a vibe of what the customer wants. And we have some packages as far as like brand identity stuff. So we, I think we build like our first tier would be like a responsive logo system where, just have your icons, your marks, your word mark, something to give you a base. And from there, like a visual identity where you have all the things I just mentioned, plus your color, your typography figured out, whether you want like some brand icons and some pattern design. There's a lot of different things, and it all kind of depends on the business, So a guy who does asphalt driveways is going to be a lot different from someone who owns a restaurant, So they all need different things. So it all depends on the customer, but and from there we could do full blown comprehensive brand identities where we really take into account a lot more market research, customer values, and those are more geared to people who are going to be working with marketing companies after me, and because I'm not really into like marketing campaigns and doing all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So those are really valuable for people who are going to be going forward, and I give all the like the foundational tools and assets for marketing companies to go crazy with. And
So I guess if you're not really focused on that stuff afterwards, is like long-term retainers and relationships not really a thing in your industry? Do you kind of just work with them once and you give them everything they need?
No, actually it's the opposite. Usually people like working with me and they'll get back to the marketing company. And not to talk trash about marketing companies. That's not true. But more so like I like to be an extension of someone's company as like their design department if I can. So like I typically with my printing background will help a lot with production services where, if you're getting a wallpaper done in your store and I'll see the proof that the printing company made and he's like, can you fix this for me? I'm like, yeah, no worries. So stuff like that. And also just, once people design their brand, they're going to need either like maybe packaging or their apparel. We dabble in website design, or at the very least, I handle like that on an art director kind of role with web development companies. So there's lots of opportunity to keep growing and, help people with services. Cause it's one thing to design stuff. It's another thing to like help people with their business where your logo needs to turn into a sign, and I can help you get that. I'll take care of the proofing, the communications, and someday you'll show up at your storefront and there's going to be a nice sign above your door. So I love doing that kind of stuff, like the full circle, like bridging the gap of like not just sending someone a bunch of files and it's like, good luck.
Yes.
So helping support them. And I always tell people like copy me on correspondence with your printers, your production people. Because a lot of times they'll ask the customer something and they don't know the answer to it, and I do, so I'll just be like, "Yep, here it is," or you know, stuff like that goes a long way. So.
Yeah. I'm like shocked at the amount of people who like, you know, I'll work with one of my clients to create a video and then I'll be like, "Hey, can you send me a high res file of your logo?" And they'll send me like a crusty JPEG.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Is that the best you have?" It's crazy to me. I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, and sometimes they don't know. Sometimes I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, I gave you one," and
Yes.
you know, it's actually in this folder. So yeah. And that's the other thing, like, you know, making sure clients know what they're using. So I'll give like PDF guides on like what different files are. Like,
that's nice.
I
to
love a
use-
style guide.
Yeah, or like even just like
Explaining the
what's a
use case.
JPEG versus use a PDF and Adobe Illustrator file for printing, and don't use PNGs and stuff like that. You know,
Yes.
so
Okay.
little things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, style guides go a long way, especially for people feeling good about taking their brand and going forward in the world. But yeah, I mean, it depends on what the ask is. If it's like I said, if it's like a full blown e-commerce website, I would recommend that to someone else.
Right.
Or if you want to blast a newsletter to someone, I feel like there's better people, you know, equipped for that kind of stuff. But yeah.
It's kind of a random question, but like in a similar design realm, do you ever work hand in hand with like animators and like motion graphic artists? Like when you're the one like maybe designing those logos and stuff, and then the motion graphic people kind of do what they do with it. Because I know a couple people that are like motion graphic designers, and I know they don't design the stuff. So
Yeah, I haven't worked with too many animation designers. But yeah, I'd be happy to. I mostly work with a lot of photographers, web designers, and yeah, I think it's all about finding the right fit for people, and working with people that kind of have a similar process as me is kind of important. And yeah, just being transparent with people. Like if someone's hard to work with, you're just like, all right, like what are we doing?
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but yeah, not too much animation, but yeah, would love to. Yeah, for sure.
It's really cool. One of his good friends, Sean, who we've had on the podcast,
Nice.
he's like an incredible animations. What is it? Motion?
I think motion graphic
Yeah.
designer
Yeah.
artist is the proper
like After
term.
Effects and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does some really cool stuff.
And I'm sure you like live in Illustrator, right?
Yeah,
Or-
that's my bread and butter.
Okay.
Yep. Illustrator, some Photoshop. Yeah, it's kind
No
of
Canva, huh?
I have I've created brand guides, or like the style guides, like the brand assets and Canva.
Okay, got it.
I don't know. That's the thing. I'm not too uppity about that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. Like I wouldn't pay for my services if I was just starting my company. You know, like I guess it depends. If you have a good like idea of what your business is going to be, or maybe you've been doing it for 10 years, now you're just going off on your own, or maybe you have a storefront and you need to have something up front right away. But in a lot of cases, people are kind of figuring it out for their first year. So, you know, I tell people like, yeah, like figure out who your customer base is, figure out if this is a viable, like you're going to figure out your process a little bit better. And that might be better time to work with someone like me. And I know how you guys do it too. Like after you start to find your voice a little bit, it probably is a good idea to start getting some professional photography and video done to up the ante and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, Canva's a great option for people who are trying to ball out on a budget. And it's obviously works for people. And I think it's wrong for designers to expect people not to go the cheapest route that works for them. It's like, if you find a logo, if you find someone to design a logo for you for $100 and you love it, like
that's great.
Great.
you win.
Yeah.
You win.
Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations.
100%.
But
yeah,
that's hard to find. And yeah, I think it's tough. Like I even heard a story where someone's like, they loved the work that they got done on Fiverr, but then they couldn't find the person again.
I know.
And they're like, they wanted to find him again,
Oh, wow.
like to go back to him, and they're like, they're off out in the ether. You know, they couldn't get their contact info or whatever. But
Oh wow, interesting.
yeah, so it's valuable to have a good relationship with people, and that's why I try to get a vibe with people, and sometimes it works, sometimes it's not the right fit, which is totally fine.
Yeah, we have a similar process.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really sure, like from a designer aspect, like what a client would need on a consistent basis from designers.
Yeah, and it's different industries. like I was telling you guys, like from my print background, it's really good to work with printing companies who they get asked. You know, printing companies do not typically want to do design work because they're making money when their printing presses are operating. So they're happy to usually refer that work out. So I've reached out to a handful of local printers and try to make good connections. And if people are working with a commercial printing company, then they usually have a decent sized project in the works and it needs to be done to a certain T. So we're happy to be there for people. And that's usually you can be like, hey, we can help you with other stuff too. And, apparel and all that kind of stuff. So lots of opportunities. And you also have to be, if you're passionate about what you do, you can kind of sell different services. I think it doesn't come off cringy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's kind of how I started, to be honest. Like when I started my business, like we talked about, I kind of just jumped off the cliff. So I knew I needed a logo. And I initially looked on Fiverr and I had a couple people design logos, and I got one done for like a really quick option, and I took that and then used that as inspiration because it wasn't exactly the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
And I took that and I went to, I got like a referral from someone who I knew did it. And I was like, hey, can you like take this and like maybe make it a little better? But again, it was a quick one. I just kind of needed something. Like my logo is very simple. It's nothing crazy. It's a literal camera lens with my name on it. Like that's it. And I just needed something to get me started. And now, like you said, I have established myself. I'll be in year 3 of my business in a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm like, thank you. That's awesome. It's been crazy. It's flown by. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I've leveled up in my quality of content. I've leveled up in like several different aspects. I know that I can do this now. So, and then now I met you. So we're going to work together. We've started like having conversations about that and rebranding and all that.
Yes, we have.
And so now I'm like ready to take that step. Whereas in the beginning, I just needed to get off the ground.
Yeah. And that makes me feel way more comfortable too. Like I don't want to sell something to someone that they're not sure if they need.
Yeah.
That's not a good feeling where you're like, oh man, they're paying a lot of money for this. I'm not even sure they need it. Like that's not a a good feeling.
Yeah. It makes you feel sleazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, maybe sometimes you want to like overcompensate and like, I don't know, give them, go above and beyond, which we usually try to do anyways. But it's, the creative industry is weird because it's like, I wish it was a little bit more looked at as like service-based industries where, plumbers and electricians, it's pretty understandable that they make a certain amount of money.
It's a necessity.
It is a necessity. We're less of a necessity, but still looked at, as a service. We're helping building brands and companies and the things that are going to help them sell their services. So, I think it's tough sometimes because you're like, you can work from your couch, you can work on your laptop, but it's like, it's still a skill. It's a trade. So trying to get that across to people sometimes can be the trick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess, so talking from like the from scratch, I guess, perspective, like take me, for example, someone who I know I want to change the name of my business. I know I want a new logo, basically a whole brand identity rehaul. How do you, like, what are the challenges and what are the exciting parts of working with someone who's like, I don't really know what I want?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, I don't know what I'm going to do either. I wish I had an idea of. There's some stories people being like the logo comes to you at like during the brand call or the discovery call. But so the process for me is to, again, like learn everything I can about your company and like learn your background too. Try to find some story-based questions we can get out there. Like you have a journalistic background that I would like to try to tell more people about that. And I try to have a really practical approach to things. Is like, what would I consumer like? The dumb guy, like, oh, what like, educate me about this.
Yes.
And a lot of times I'll work with people who are like, kind of do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, no, you're an expert in your field. We want to talk about that. Let's elaborate. And then I kind of just get to know about the company and I learn about different things. Like, I had a client she was a med spa and I was just like, learning about Botox and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. But you educate yourself and you start to learn about the industry a little bit. and you ask them like, and it's sometimes it's nice. You can ask questions and you're like, oh, okay, we need to highlight that. Or when you see things that are trending a lot, you'll underline them and you're like, okay, this is clearly showing up multiple places. So from there, I do something now where I send a clarification document after I do like a brand strategy session with someone where I talk about all the things we kind of covered. I try to express some of my ideas of where we could go as far as like verbiage. Like if I'm doing like your mission statement, like directions we can go in, some possible taglines we could use and see if they like that. And like, okay, you like that. That's like our verbal clarification, approval. So from there, I'll go to some visual directions. So we'll, depending on the project, we'll do mood boards or stylescapes and, just collection of stuff from the internet, and we'll curate it, through Photoshop. I'll edit the colors a little bit so there's a vibe that really transcends. And that's just valuable for getting information from clients to see what they like, what they don't like. And again, just trying to capture a kind of style they want to go in. So we get visual and verbal approvals, and then I kind of go forth and I have an idea of what I'm really educated in what they do, what they kind of like, visually what they're gravitating towards. And they feel comfortable with like what I know about them at that point. So yeah, typically everything gets ironed out in our contracts. So, if you need like a primary mark, secondary mark, icons, all that stuff gets kind of displayed in a presentation. And yeah, I mean, as far as like starting from scratch, everything starts in a sketch typically.
Okay.
The sketches always don't make it to the computer, but you got to kind of like start that like weeding it out kind of process, or at least start thinking of like how, the name of the company is going to be arranged and how it could be looked. And you try to get visuals. So like what are some things that we can attach to visually, whether it's like, like a noun or like, I don't know, some kind of like an animal of some kind, or like I had a good story with a client that they had a restaurant and it was like, I think it's called Pie Town, and they're no longer around anymore. Rest in peace. But no, they was all about pies. There's like pizza pie, chicken pot pie, apple pie.
Ooh,
Okay.
That's kind of fun.
Pie. So
A lot of pie.
yeah, so I drew like, I don't know, 400 pie icons, and I was just like, this is not working. Like this is a hard time making it like that connection. So yeah, I called them back, and this is early on in my process, so this is not kind of what I do now, but this is like a learning process. So I called them back. I was like, we need something that's more of a connection. Like, what are you guys? And they're just like, well, I really like vintage trucks and like mason jars and porch swinging, doors and things. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, okay. Delivery truck. We'll use a truck for delivering apples for Pie Town, and everything's kind of clicked after that.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So you try to get those like connections where people can be like, make that visual. So
And it doesn't have to be obvious always, right? Like you were trying to, it makes sense that you were going the pie direction with the icons, but then you learn something else and it's like, oh, it can be kind of like an Easter egg type of thing where like it's still very personal to the brand, but it's not necessarily the most obvious thing about the brand.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I try to just make everything just like make sense where it should not be hard to understand. And like, you don't want to be, I try not to be too literal with, your icon or your mark doesn't need to explain everything you do. Like, you guys don't want to have a camera as your logo.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah. So the challenge is kind of like nailing down that aesthetic. And yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel and make something the most profound, artistically, dramatic thing. It just needs to work. It needs to work for the customer. It needs to fit. Like if the owner of the company is front facing and he's this jolly, funny guy and like super laid back, like we want to have that kind of aesthetic, or if they want to be like known as the premier, top notch, top of the line, like that needs to be communicated too. So,
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of just, same thing with my aesthetic too. Like I want people to come to my website and expect that it's not going to be a super cheap, one-time logo. Like, people call me, I just need one logo. It's like, well,
I'm not the right fit.
nah, I don't really. Yeah, because like for me, I don't know. I look at it like a print production. and it's like similar, like when you order t-shirts, you know, it's why they have minimums and stuff. Cause like they still have to do the same amounts of parts of the process, whether you get 5 shirts or 500 shirts.
Yep.
So, or usually, you know, so yeah, if I'm going to make a good logo, it needs to be kind of part of that whole process anyways. So
I agree.
yeah, might as well, you know, pay a little bit more in my opinion and be happy with it. And working with someone who understands you, I think is the biggest thing. So
Yes.
So I have a question on the less visual side.
Yeah.
So not necessarily logo, but because you help people with naming, right? Like,
yeah.
so it actually ties into what you're about to be doing. And you touched on it for your own brand earlier. Like you said you didn't want it to be, you know, self-named.
Yeah.
I felt the same way, which is why I never had a self-named business, but you currently do, but you're attempting to branch out of that to have a new name. I just want your opinion on whether, I guess, why you initially chose to not have a name and if you think it even matters to have a self-named business or not.
It's a good question. I never really thought about this before, but I tried designing my name in my portfolio in college so many different times. I was like, I hate this. Like,
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, I'm so sick of writing Luke Brownell in a weird way or a unique way. So, and I just didn't think, I don't have a, you know, some people have names where it's like, nice, that's a...
Dude, you're Nick Jones is my name.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And I just didn't think it like hit the mark too much or didn't, you know.
Exactly.
I think people with like shorter last names, like yours isn't bad, you know. But then you also brought up, you know, like, you know, getting married and changing your name.
Yes.
I was just like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never even thought about that being a guy.
Like it won't be my last name forever.
I never cared enough because I wasn't going to grow it to this size, but something someone once told me is like super, super long-term thinking here. But if you ever were to sell your business, you wouldn't want to sell like Nick Jones Productions to some random Bob.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons. Yeah, I mean, I think it always depends on what your business model is. Like if like you're like, you know, people in the wellness industry, you know, like they're the person that is selling, like you are your brand. Like I say that a lot, like your logo is not going to sell your business for you. You are, you're the brand. We're trying to create visuals that people connect to you and they go, oh, I love that person. I'm going to buy their, you know, I want to represent their logo on me or something like that. You know, that's a connection we're trying to make. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's I go back and forth on it, but yeah, I just know I honestly wanted to have something to design around, like just be able to design a bunch of different logos and have it look cool. And I go back and forth of like, working class design and stuff like that. Again, trying to be like the service based thing where just trying to do some cool work for people, decent contracts and bust it out. But yeah, as far as like your naming thing goes, I mean, I know you're working hard on it.
It's so stressful because, and I was saying this to Nick earlier, I'm having such a hard time stepping outside of myself and my business and looking at it from the outside perspective. Because when I work with my clients, I have a fresh lens, a fresh perspective. You know, I'm an outsider coming in and I can see it in that light. But, you know, for me, doing anything that has to do with myself is really hard because we're our worst critics. So, and this isn't something that I want to like rush or force at all. Yeah. And I do really think that, you know, and that's why, you know, I've started looking at some of my reviews for my clients and taking keywords from that. And a lot of it has been around like comfortable, authentic, kind. So I really want my logo to represent, you know, that part of me. Like so many people tell me that I make them feel comfortable in front of the camera. And that's so important to me. So like trying to find something like that and put it into visuals is so hard. Like how do you bottle up that feeling? You know what I mean? It's so hard.
Yeah, we're currently putting a lot of pressure on me right now. But
no, it's so hard. No, it's my fault.
Later down the line. No. Yeah. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I feel like I try to say things of like, we're trying to capture like what does comfortable look like?
Exactly.
You know?
A koala bear.
It could be.
Koala bear?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Well,
No,
and
seriously.
and that's the thing. It's like, so why is a koala bear significant? You know, and then you're like, oh, I guess it's not. But
No.
maybe it is. You know, but like, it's just these.
A couch.
Your logo's a couch.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And so from there, it's like, all right, what does that mean? What does comfortable mean? And then, I mean, as far as the process goes, it's not an exact science, but it's definitely a lot of like word mapping. Again, I think looking at trends, and I try to look at it from a consumer's point of view. So when you
Yes.
told me you have a journalistic background, I was like, oh, I would love to hire the videographer who has a journalistic background if I'm trying to talk about myself, because that would make me feel more comfortable.
Yes.
So that was one of my recommendations to you.
No, that was great. That was a good point because I had
yeah.
never thought about that.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you're not the only person I've heard that has, said similar things where working for your own brand is just like, oh man, like the running joke for graphic designers is like, I don't have a style guide for my own company. Like, even though I make them for other companies.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, I have a whole folder with everything lined out, but it's just like, yeah, I don't have an actual guideline, but, I mean, I am the guideline, but
Exactly. No, I
Yeah.
think a similar, I guess a comparison for videographers could be, we create awesome content for our clients and then we neglect our own content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so many people in our industry will be like, oh, my social media has been slacking lately. I don't post anything, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. You put your focus towards your clients and then neglect your own stuff.
that's my running struggle all the
It's
time.
a struggle.
Yeah.
It really is.
I mean, it's a struggle, but it's like we were talking about earlier. Like, I think it's important to just find what's important to you, and at the very least, you don't want potential customers looking at your social media feed and you haven't posted anything for like 6 months, and they're
Exactly.
Yes.
like, "Are they even doing this still?" Like,
Yeah.
that's number one. But yeah, other than that, if you really want to grow your followers, you can. It's just going to take a lot of work, and it can feel like a full-time job on top of your other jobs. So that's the draining part. And when you don't get the recognition or the feedback or it doesn't do the numbers you want it to, it can be demoralizing. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to find like what the middle ground is. And yeah, so I mean, and like I was telling you too, like when everything switched to video, I think that was a sign to me where it's like, all right, you need to diversify. You don't think it's wise to just have like if Instagram just went away one day, like what are we doing?
Exactly.
So
Not going to Facebook. That's for damn sure. I hate that app. God.
yeah, Meta.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shift to video must have really hit as a traditionally static medium. That must have hurt.
It was, we were all like, huh? I gotta do what now? And it was just, and it's tough too, because it's like, it's not a, how do I put this? Like, I don't want to just follow trends because that's a trend where it's like,
I agree.
my design process takes longer to show you my design process in 7 seconds, And it's like a lot of designers, and I go back and forth on this because there's people who have grown their accounts tremendously because they were ahead of the curve and got into doing reels very well. It just felt, again, like I'd rather be working on client work. I'd rather be doing it as kind of like part of my marketing, not like I'm working days and days on reels and Instagram content, just because I don't get a lot of leads through Instagram. So again, back to like knowing what's right for your business and stuff. I get a lot of word of mouth through my printing connections, through networking, recurring business. And I do get, the Instagram leads come in sometimes. So yeah, just it's important to stay up to date with it, but yeah.
It's not the end all be all. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like, I tell people like for small businesses, I think that it's just not optimized really well for us at the moment. Like if you have a personal brand, you should be definitely going all in on Instagram and the social media stuff. I think it's really optimized really well for people like that. But yeah, if you're a company facing brand and you don't feel like I work from home, so I'm not trying to have my kids in the background too much. I don't really want to have them on the public display like that. So yeah, just kind of, again, feel what's right for me. And
Right.
yeah, this will help. So
Yeah.
again,
Exactly.
thanks for having me.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah, and we've talked about this before because Nick and I have a very different approach to our own social media accounts. I do try to bring my personality into it because right now it's just me.
Yeah.
Like I'm the person that all of my clients are going to meet. So I do like, I post my workouts and stuff because I work with a lot of, fitness companies like gyms and stuff. So for me, like showing people that I practice what I preach is huge. And my personal content performs better than my, what I showcase in terms of portfolio pieces and client work. I always get more hits for some reason on like personal stuff. So I do try to bring that into my own brand.
Yeah,
But
I commend you on that because it's got to be stressful, and you're putting a piece of yourself out there, especially when it's public.
yes, yep.
And I don't know, do you get any like bad feedback, or like has any been?
No, none.
That's good.
It is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had my Instagram account for the longest time because it was Ebner photos actually for years. I started it in like high school when I was taking pictures of flowers and stuff. Like I'm talking really cringy stuff.
Yeah.
So I've had that page forever. So my friends have always followed me on that. So I've been able to like build it for a long, long time. So it's just kind of gradually, transitioned with me as I went to Ebner Creative when I added video, and now it will, transition with me when I rebrand and all that. But it's a big part of my platform.
Yeah, and I've noticed that companies are trying to step out into the camera more and more. So
It's important.
Yeah, and like I see it working on myself, where I'm like, oh, cool. I get to hear from this person who I, value their input and stuff. So, yeah, I should be doing that more often.
Do you currently post consistently at least, or?
Not for the last few weeks. No, I was getting back after it. Yeah, and I'm just really like what's right for me kind of person. Like my wife and I just had a daughter. She just turned a year old. So last year,
congratulations.
We had, thank you. Yeah, so last year I was like, I don't care about social media so much.
Yeah,
I was just kind of just trying to stay ahead of the curve with my clients and enjoy that. So yeah, I guess, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm a dad. I'm 38, freaking got, soccer practice to go to and stuff like that. It's just like, I'm not so worried about the social media
Priorities.
and like filming everything. But yeah, I do, it's one of those things, constant improvement is needed. So, and it's just thinking what's right for you. I think it's just my main thing is like, if it's a process video, like if you, like we were saying, if you do like cool construction work, I think those process videos are awesome. Or even like painting and stuff like that. I always get jealous of the people who like have coffee shops. They can just like take a video of them pouring a coffee. It's like, I have to like curate a portfolio piece.
We would have to like, screen record some of like the process of you from drawing from scratch and then the final product.
Dude, and there's people that kill it and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
And there's other people who are just like dancing for the camera and pointing at things.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not me.
That's not me either.
I don't. Or they'll tap the screen and the logo changes into something and it's like, that's not how it works. Or they'll highlight a fake email from a client that I'm like, it's like a one-word sentence or a one-sentence approval. And it's like, that's not how it goes at all. Like,
social media is fake. You have to be careful.
Yeah, well, and I know, and everyone's very transparent about that stuff. So it's not like people are trying to sell that, but it's just like, I don't know. That's not how it goes at all. So,
but it seems like your approach with your clients is very collaborative.
Yeah, 100%.
And it seems like that's a huge part of, and same thing for us. Like if we're not learning about the business that we're working with, like we're not going to produce a product that translates for their clients at all.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I've learned along the way, and people have said this too, that I try to tell my clients that they and I are collaborating together for something that their customers are going to want. It's not so much I'm trying to create something that they like. We're like, I'm a Pisces, so can you put fish in the logo? It's like, that's not really what we're going for here. Like, what does that have to do with your business? Right. So that's just kind of like the thing where we try to make sure we're on the same page. We're like the designer client relationship, or maybe just the creative entrepreneur, can be somewhat framed adversarially. Like, I hope you like what I make for you, and it's not like that. It's like your feedback's valuable. Like, and that's why it's just my process is like, if they don't like it, they know how we got there, and they can say, yeah, I know I told you this a couple weeks ago, let's revisit this. And so they are very aware of the process. And I try to take all the mystery out of it, where it's like, how'd you do that? Like, where'd you come up with that idea? Like, they know where all the ideas are coming from.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's definitely important, because it's nightmare material getting into like revision 10, 11, 12, and all of a sudden people are like, is this even a good idea to begin with? And so you try to really harness that process, usher it along, get them in, and keep them happy and enthusiastic. And the best customers are always people that like are, like yourself, kind of like enthusiastic about their brand. They want to do it, like I'm not into like trying to sell my services to people that aren't really like, they're not excited about it anyways. They're kind of just doing it because they know they have to.
Yeah.
So
do you have any, I'm sure it varies, but do you have any sort of turnaround time that you try to go by? Like,
I was going to ask that too. Yeah.
I'm
like a
maybe
full
for
brand
the
rehaul.
full, let's talk about
like
the
for
full
me,
thing.
how long should, like, generally?
Because like you were
I
talking
know
revisions
you said
10, 12, so I'm sure that takes a long time.
Worst answer ever, but it honestly depends on the client, because there's clients who they have an existing company and they're like, yeah, whenever you get to it. And you're like, no, we need to actually line out, a timetable here. And there's clients who are like, I need it in 2 months. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
So we can accommodate both. The price may change depending on how expedited this is, or the workload.
But in general, it's more of like months versus weeks. Like, it's not that fast.
Yeah, I mean, again, if the project's right, I'm happy to, because again, sometimes people don't need a full-blown, people come in for like a full-blown like brand identity project, typically aren't looking for it in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I think they understand that's like, this is going to be a little bit, of a process. So I try to at least knock off, if I'm trying to do it as fast as I can, at least knock off a part of the process at least once every week. So like we'll do discovery meeting, try to get the contracts and stuff ironed out in that week, and then the next week we do a brand strategy session, and then the following week I'll reply with like my findings, or within that week get back to them with that, and just keep those touch points, like the communication coming, and then go another week or two, go for the style guides, and also if you're not done, like touch base with them. It's like, hey, I wanted to let you know I'm should be done in a couple of days, or so just try to keep that going. And then I guess it kind of depends on what the client needs, and also these are like kind of moving targets too. So if people give me like really vague feedback, then it's like, all right, well, we might need to take a little longer on this, or sometimes it's like I know exactly what they want, so it's pretty cut and dry at that point. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
So I would say 2 months would be a good, or I shouldn't say, 1 to 2 months would be a good timetable for allowing a designer to kind of get to know each other and get that whole process started.
Similar for us, like with revisions and all that, getting feedback from clients and trying to like for us, like sometimes it'll be, oh, the client wants this one change, and then they're like, actually, can you change this thing too? Like trying to get all of that in one feedback, one revision.
I mean, I limit my revision
we do.
requests.
We do.
I cap it.
Yeah.
We based on all the work I just described up front, it's like we should not be on revision 5, 6, 7. So I cap it at 3 rounds of revisions, and then they're paying hourly after that.
Yep.
And we typically don't even get there ever. So I'd almost never, I don't think I've ever have to really, knock on wood, enforce that one. But it's just, again, trying to usher them along, and it's funny. It's like, even if you try to do it faster than that, it typically takes around a month or 2 to get everything ironed out. And then, because it's like, we're always looking back on when you need things done. Like, are you opening a store? Like, is your lease starting?
Is there a hard deadline?
Yeah, like, what are we talking about here? And they're like, oh, yeah, I do have a trade show coming up. It's like, all right, well, we should have that ready for, when is that? Oh, it's on Friday. It's like, are you flying there? Oh, yeah, or it's going to be a couple of days. Okay, well, we need to know. Let's count backwards.
Yes.
And like print production, again, it's always like a 4-week timeline is a good lead time for any kind of printer. I think it's a fair lead time for anyone. Whether you're doing apparel or packaging or stationery, can be done usually pretty quickly. But yeah, you always just need to kind of take those things into account. You know, if you're doing like label designs and like brewery stuff or like food service things, there's like a lot of different variables you got to take into account. So
I guess, yeah, I was thinking about it because in like photo video type of world, it could definitely be seen as more valuable for someone to get it done faster. So I didn't know if in this world, if faster turnaround time was clearly more valuable, or if it's kind of a general understanding that this type of stuff just takes a long time.
I think there's people who definitely do great in doing doing things quickly. I think there's some people. I think it just depends on what you like to do. I like taking my time, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Always trying to work on that, but there are people who definitely have a more of like quantity over quality type of thing, where it's like they're just banging things out, but maybe they're doing like a very specific niche where like they just can crank that stuff out.
Right.
Yeah. So like for me, it's a lot more like I have very different customers, like property management customers versus like cannabis clients versus.
Yeah. So you're not following like the same formula. Same template
everyone's
each time,
kind of different. And, yeah, I mean, like, so you have some clients that are like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing the next week. I'll let you know. And you're like, all right. And then you have some people who are like, I need this done this day at 12 o'clock. And you're like, okay. So
that's probably a little easier, to be honest. Like,
it actually does. When someone's pretty on top of that, it is nice. Because, I joke around. People, it's like, oh, I don't care. You can do it the next year. And it's like, probably going to take about a year then.
Yeah.
So I'll get to it when I get to it. But yeah, no, we try to crank things out just because, again, if you don't hear from me for a month and then I'm like, what's up? It's kind of hard to get them excited again about the project.
Right. Yeah. Keep it top of mind.
That constant communication.
Yeah. Just try to stay top of mind. Cause I've learned the hard way where it's just, and even like presenting and selling designs where it's like, even if they are aware of all that stuff, I'll just be like a little recap of like how we got to here and what you're about to see based on all that stuff.
I just did something similar. It's like, I give my clients updates too. So like day of production, if I'm in here shooting a product, I'll send them quick I'll email them some iPhone photos of BTS of what we're doing. And then they know I'm in the editing process and there's really nothing to say. I'm just going to be editing for a little while, but even though there's nothing to say, I'll still touch base and just let them know like editing process is going great just to have one extra touch point.
That's awesome.
So smart. Yeah, that's really smart.
I'm sure
there's no real update. It's just still going.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I know. It is. And I just think it's just it's good to have like knowing that someone's thinking of you. Because I think we are. Like we're thinking of our clients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I'm thinking about all 4 projects that I have kind of currently going on. And I don't want them to think that I'm not thinking about them. So sometimes this is like, yep, still planning on doing that. We're getting there.
Yeah.
And I've heard, I think Chris Doe said that there's value in thinking about things for a little while before just like jumping into work and just like when we just start sketching just to sketch. Let me like think about this, go for a walk. Like a lot of my good ideas come when I'm driving. Drives me nuts. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go for a drive. Hopefully something comes to me.
Yes.
No, so it's like I think it's good to like think about things for a little while and process things. But
yeah. I wanted to ask you, do you have any projects, whether it's recently or years ago, that are like that was one of your favorites that sticks out to you? That was really fun to work on? Yeah,
our mutual client, Madison at Revived Athlete Recovery. That was a real fun one. For multiple reasons, it was cool. So Madison's we went to the same high school, so we knew each other.
Oh, I didn't know that.
On a local level. Yep.
That's crazy.
So that was cool to have her reach out. And then she was one of the first clients I had that had like a full-blown business plan and like loans figured out. And she was like, had a whole budget. I was just like, all right, cool. So felt really good about working with her. And then she also, her storefront is right in the heart of Worcester. So a really high traffic area where a lot of people know of. And I've mentioned it to plenty of people and they're like, oh yeah, I know that place. So really valuable like portfolio piece for me. And she's an awesome client. And Yeah, she was one of the first people and it was cool because I think she was like in her mid-20s when she started the whole business. So younger, like definitely had some nerves about jumping in and doing that whole thing, especially like having a storefront. Like I can't imagine having that.
Yeah,
at this
brick and
point.
mortar's a different level.
Different level, yeah.
And she designed it from scratch.
Yeah.
Like she built that place.
Yeah, really cool. So she came to me and she basically knew what color she wanted. And the name of the business is Revived Athlete Recovery. And yeah, so we just started the whole process. So we went back and forth a little bit. And again, like trying to design things around Revived was a little challenging. It's because like, what does that look like? So, yeah. And like I was going to say, she was one of the first customers I said that was like, hey, like you're going to be successful because you're really good at this. And she was like a strength and conditioning coach for multiple colleges, I think. And I, knew she knew what she was doing. So it's like people are going to come to you because of that.
Yes.
They might wear your sweatshirts because they like you and they like the logo that I made and, and stuff like that. So like, again, the logo is not going to sell. They're not going to explain everything that you do. No one's going to be like, wow, look at that logo. I need to go there. That doesn't happen. But they walk in and they go, oh, wow, this is cool. Like, the other day I shared, she puts her branding stuff on everything.
Yeah. The ice
so
bath.
like, yeah, the ice bath's now branded with my logo. I'm like, that's cool. And then,
so
and then
cool.
foresee that happening.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah.
And and she's very driven on that front. So it's nice when people use a lot of the assets I use to a good level. So yeah, she took the brand guideline, gave it to a web designer. He ran with it. And then I got all of her signage done for her storefront, which was really fun. She wants to do like murals and stuff too down the line. So yeah, so that was a really fun one. And yeah, a good overall project to highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her logo. And I think a lot of the times when you hear of like a sports massage place or something like that, it's like a running logo, like a person, like an active person. So I love what you did with it, how you made it. You tied it to like water and it's like, flowy and cool. Like it's so cool.
Yeah.
I love her stuff.
We tried like the muscle fibers and things and smoothing and all that kind of stuff. I was trying to go in that direction and having things intertwined and stuff. So that was kind of the main feedback on that one. And yeah, it was a good project because we went back and forth a little bit. But like during the stylescape phase, it was kind of trying to figure out like, is this more of like a spa vibe or is this more of like an athlete? And it was clearly more of an athlete thing. But again, it was challenging thing with that was it's somewhat of a new industry as far as like recovery goes, where it's not the place where you work out.
Yep.
Where I even thought I was like, are people doing like stretching and yoga and stuff like that? She's like, no, not really. People are just recovering. I was like, all right. So what does that mean?
You also have an athletic background, so you had that edge too.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely helps for sure. And yeah, the athletic thing has always been interesting as far as having like the athletic side of my brain and like the artistic side of my brain. So trying to, now I use it more of like competitiveness and like trying to stay after it as like a business owner and stuff and trying to, I don't know. I just want people to be impressed at the end of the day and I like it. So
yeah. On the opposite end, do you have any stories of like a difficult client?
No.
Never.
A difficult
They're
client?
all a joy.
No.
Or maybe one where you screwed up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you, like-
no, that's never happened. No, I don't know. That's a good question. So typical clients, I think it's just identifying red flags that you hear about and being like, oh, it's real.
Yep.
Okay, this is what they meant. I've dealt with clients who like don't look at proofs, and then everything gets printed, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on with this?" And you're like, "All right, I mean, you approved it. Like, I don't know what to tell you." And it's not a good look to be like, "Well, they approved it, so tough." You know, you gotta try to mediate that.
Yes.
I've had clients. What should I say? What do I want to say? Yeah, I've had clients question me about like trademarking stuff because I think their lawyer filed it wrong, and they come back to me and been like, "Did you mess this up?" And I'm like, now I'm like doing my Law and Order thing, looking at the document, and being like, "No, I didn't do anything wrong. The logo's the logo. I'm trying to figure out if I could have done anything wrong, and they're like
Right.
super stressful. And
Yeah,
you're like,
that is
oh my God,
stressful.
did I do anything? And I'm like, no. So hire a lawyer, get a lawyer,
Yeah.
review contracts.
Well, and your
that kind of
stuff,
stuff.
your designs are copyrighted. Like your contract was very thorough in the sense of like these designs are yours.
Yeah.
You own those. Like it's your intellectual property, right? Like
Yeah.
that must be kind of interesting to navigate too.
Yeah, I can't get in trouble for any of this stuff, so it's
Yeah.
on you. No, and, yeah, I mean it's just got to be spelled out where it's like, I am obviously not trying to rip off anybody. You know, if you give me a name that I'm designing around, I try my best to like research and be like, hey, someone's kind of doing the exact same thing you're doing.
Yep.
And that's never really happened, but we try to be conscious of any like obvious outliers and stuff like that. So yeah, the contracts are important. Make sure people are really well aware, like mainly just the process. And I find the only, you know, anytime a client becomes a problem, it's usually my part of my doing too. It's not because they're just a, you know, pain in the ass and they suck and whatever. It's just like I either let them off, or I either like wasn't tight enough with my process, or maybe I feel like didn't communicate something where.
That's similar to us.
That's good self-awareness, honestly.
No, it is.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
it honestly is just like, yeah, I could have done something to prevent this. Like, you got to think about something that way. Is like, where could I have stopped this from happening? And sometimes it's just like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have worked with this person. You know?
Right.
Yes.
I took on a project, and it was, all right, yeah, I got one. I took on a project.
Here we go.
No, I took on a project. It was in an industry that I really wanted to get into, and it was a new lead for someone I didn't know, but it was everything seemed like on the up and up. It was really good, but they were like a startup company, had like virtually no budget, and wanted something very custom. And I was like, all right, I want to get into this industry, and they could be a good client down the line. And it was for like a one of those like conferences where like it's going to be 1 million people and like buying merch and stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, and I kind of felt like we were on the same page, communicated my ideas, and did the work. And they came back and they were like, oh, actually, they gave me a tidbit of information that would have been really useful as far as like make the design make more sense or something like that. And I was like, oh, sorry guys, like I already, you know, they're like, yeah, we don't have more money to pay you. I was like, all right, so you don't have any money, you can't communicate. I should have known right off the bat, like probably shouldn't have took that project.
We've all had those.
Yeah.
We've all had those.
It's all learning curves. It's all learning curves.
For sure.
Yeah, you're never going to do anything perfect. And I had a client ask for a refund.
Oh, Jesus.
And he didn't get a full refund, but we worked with it. And but because I felt like I could have handled it a little bit differently. He was just he was a musician, great guy, wonderful person to talk to. We had, you know, really good meetings, and I just think that we weren't I don't know, aligned. I think he needed to. I think he was looking to try to figure out his like the direction he's trying to go in musically a little bit, and a logo wasn't going to exactly do that for him. So we just kind of just decided to part ways.
Yep.
But I did a lot of work, and so I gave him, you know, some of his money back, but
Yep.
not all of it, and he was totally cool about that. So very professional.
Yeah.
But that's literally happened 1 or 2 times. So it's not when it happens, you're like, oh no.
Right.
But
It feels like the end of the world, and then it's like, that's not that
that's
bad.
happened to me too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it happens. It happens. You're not going to make every single person happy, but I think I'm like 95% pretty good.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like pretty confident.
That's
Yeah.
the goal.
yeah. So
Yeah.
at least I like to say that. So
Yeah, I don't want anyone to feel like they aren't seen or heard. And I also don't want anyone to leave me a bad review. So I'm like, whatever, I'll just do whatever I can
That
to
too.
make you happy. If we have to part ways, that's fine.
yeah.
But for me, it's like you said, you know, it's almost always boiled down to a lack of communication, or something that could have been communicated better on both parts. But, you know, you have to own some of that. So
And it's like you got to decide how much hand holding you're going to do to
Yeah.
an extent. You can't just like do all the work for everybody. Just make sure everything goes smoothly. But at the same time, yeah, like, you know, like that process with the musician I described, like I probably shouldn't have gone forth with the creation process because I still was kind of like, I'm not sure what he's looking for. You know, I followed all my steps in the process. I did everything that I normally do. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, I'll figure it out. And then I presented it to him. I was just like, you know, his feedback was good. But after he thought about it, he's like, yeah, I'm just not really feeling it. And he's like, I think we should just kind of halt for now. And I was like, all right, I can understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't nail it. I wasn't like, I knocked this out of the park. So I wasn't like shocked by his response.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
at that point, I'm like, yeah, I should have reassessed. And that's where the clarification document came in, where I try to talk a little bit more about where
That's
I'm
good
really
to do,
thinking.
yeah.
Smart.
So yeah, your process is going to get developed as you go. And maybe you know, I'm always looking to like try to figure out how to streamline it the best I can.
Yeah.
So,
I have like, I guess maybe a final thought, but
yeah.
I really think a brand can elevate a business. So can you give like your personal opinion, I guess, on, you know, how valuable is a brand to a business? Like what are some things that like you think of? It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, it can be as valuable as you want it to be, I think. And we were talking about how I think, and a lot of people would agree, that being authentic in today's marketplace is one of the most important things. Even brands are trying, or big corporate entities are trying to look more authentic and genuine. So no matter what it is you do, I mean, it doesn't have to be a dope logo, but like if you like making content, like make a good content, and that can be your brand. You know, you don't like, there's some logos that are slapped everywhere because they're good at branding. The logo may not be the coolest thing in the world, but like you recognize that logo in a lot of different places because, you know, they do a good job getting the word out there. Like like Red Bull is used a lot as an example because it's like, you know, they'd almost never show products of their actual cans. And so it's like they want people to like who are into the extreme athlete, you know, sports and all that stuff, like be synonymous with Red Bull, you know. And it's like I'm a big into mountain biking, and like they're everywhere in that industry. So
those videos make me so nervous. Oh my God.
Yeah, they're
going down cliffs on the bike. Oh my God, I have a heart attack. They just posted one where they were like skydiving and the plane was like nosediving. I was like, what the? Like our people are crazy.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's all relative to what you're comfortable with, right? But yeah, I see some stuff where it's like, that guy's no thanks.
Yeah.
But I guess how relevant is that formula for other brands to do? Like, I see Red Bull as kind of an anomaly where yes, they found great success in this structure, but can that translate to other brands, or is that type of marketing fairly custom to that type of product and brand? It
all comes with an idea. I mean, I think ideas are there's people who come up with really unique ideas, and there's people who are like come up with like, I think safe, you know, this is a proven plan kind of thing, like a rinse and repeat. Like there's people who are entrepreneurs and they'll own like 5-6 companies because they know how to build a company. So yeah, as far as your question goes, as far as the Red Bull thing, I think it's kind of depends on what you're trying to push out there. Like Liquid Death is like this outlier. It's like no one's gonna be like them, but at the same time they had that vision. And yeah, I don't know. I have some customers who you're just like, whoa, never thought about it that way. That's interesting, you know. So there's people that push the envelope, and I think it's just important to know what you're trying to sell. Like, who are the people you're trying to sell to? What's important to them? You know, like I don't know, the Red Bull thing. They're extreme sports athletes. Like those guys. Like they're a different breed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the crazier the better.
But then it's also exciting and it's like, oh, maybe I want to get into that someday. Like I think I saw a GoPro video of a guy riding a mountain bike, and I was like, I got a GoPro. I just need a bike now. Like, what am I doing? And yeah, I mean, I love it to this day. But yeah, so I guess it's like, again, like people look at that, might see the Red Bull reference and be like, yeah, dude, I have like a boring company. Like, what's the thing? But it's like, what could get people excited about that? You know, like in our BNI group that we're in, there's a lot of people who make you think. You go, oh yeah, I could use something like that, or you don't think about it a certain way until someone presents a situation where you're like, oh yeah, I could use that. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it definitely does. Yeah.
as far as like trying to figure out what's right for you, again, like use branding if you need it. Like branding is a very general word, but like as far as like the visuals, like the logos, I love to make a lot of variations for things so people can put things on like sweatshirts and hats, and then their signage is all different, but it still all relates back to the same thing. And then people will get kind of like, ooh, like what else can I make? I love when people send me videos of like, I just ordered a bunch of merch. I'm so excited. Stuff like that. But then there's other companies who are like, I don't need any of that. I need 5 vans wrapped, and it needs to stand out, and it needs to be separate from my competitors. And you're just like, okay. Like that's their brand. They're trying to, it's important to them. So I guess it's always important what's important to you, what you're trying to message, you're trying to get out there.
Yeah.
And if it's in social media, or if it's on a website, or if it's word of mouth or whatever, like I joke around about like, I'd rather invest in a billboard at this point than like paid ads on a social media platform. I don't know. I just like the old school marketing. I like that.
I know.
And like people come up with new ideas all the time. Like I forget, I wish I knew the guy's name of the company, but this guy goes viral all the time for giving away watches, and he like films himself, and the people have like X amount of hours to come find him. And if you see him,
oh yeah,
the Love My Journey guy,
I've seen that.
If anyone knows what I'm talking about,
I know.
Please comment.
Yes.
But yeah, if you find him, you get a free watch.
Yeah.
And it's always this genuine, like very emotional human reaction of like, oh my God, you found me.
Yeah.
And like he doesn't tell anyone the location. Like people in the local area are like, oh, that's the park.
Like, yes.
So they go find him.
Yes.
And now people are following him because maybe they'll see him in their location someday. And you're just like, whoa, marketing. That guy knew what he was doing.
So creative.
So there's different ways to, do things. And and that's what I'm thinking. I'm not into the ad campaigns so much as far as like, like when the Super Bowl comes around, there's always like some like Easter egg where you're like, oh, okay, someone was thinking about this months and months in advance. But yeah. I think it's just important to be authentic in whatever you do. Decide what that is, just present it professionally, and just try to be consistent. It's just consistent and like even evolve consistently. Like, if it's something that's not working, just be like, this is getting kind of stale. So
yeah. I think my biggest thing with rebranding is I want to just level up. Like I think my logo is it's like a little amateur right now, and I want to come across as more than that. Yeah. So that's like my biggest reason.
And
I do think it helps. Yeah. I promise I'll get my shit together.
No, you have your shit together. Trust me.
Don't become one of his horror stories.
I know. I won't. I promise. I promise.
Yeah. No, they usually takes a long time to become a horror story where you're just like, all right, where is this going?
Yeah.
But no, you're fine. And then as far as like people that want to level up, that's just like the perfect client, It's just again, you don't have to hire someone who's I'll say this, one tough thing for people wanting to work with people like me is there's so much variance, and like you could hire an agency and they could give you a huge quote and they'll promise to take care of everything, like your social media, your website, your marketing. And you're like, do I need to go that route? Or like, do you go like the super cheap route? And I've had people who've tried both, and I kind of try to be a nice go-between for that. I think it's just what matters, what works for you. And if you find something that is, bare bones right now, like I even tell people, like, go look up Google Fonts, and if your name looks cool, like use that for a little bit and just get something out there. Like, again, like, someone who's giving business advice probably shouldn't drop thousands and thousands of dollars on your logo and stuff like that before you even really know what you're doing.
Right.
Like I'll ask people like, oh, so like, how do you, generate revenue? And they'll be like, huh? And you're like, all right, we need to think about this a little bit more. And it's like, sometimes people have like, they get excited and they're like, I got an idea. Now I need a logo. And it's like, there's some process things. So
Yeah.
you're way ahead of the curve
Okay.
and much more.
Feel a little better about myself now.
Yeah, no. When you have an idea of what you're trying to do, some people, and that's the thing. It's kind of it's helpful to help people figure that stuff out, iron it out. I've had a customer who was just like, "Oh, it feels like you're in my head," like trying to find things that they like. And she was cool. She was just like, "Yeah, thanks to you, I know I like black letter fonts." Yeah, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a fun part working with clients like that. So yeah, we'll get something ironed out for you, and
I'm excited.
yeah, leveling up is all we're all about.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for sure.
Cool.
I guess the final
other
thing was I just
questions?
wanted to open the floor to you. If you had any questions for us that you
Or
were
any
thinking
final
about this whole
man, I
parting
time.
got so many
words?
questions. I have, I mean, the parallels between like creative work. One thing that I've been learning about in like your sense is like, the work. There's a lot more work is done behind the scenes than the actual like photo shoot. And I'll like kind of piggybacking off of that, like I kind of been jealous of you guys because, you schedule something with a client and like they know they're on video and they're like, oh, they probably like get dressed up, they get formalized. Is that the case usually, or like you kind of just knock it out in that day and then the project it takes a couple weeks to wrap up? Or like for me, it's like I feel like it's a let's get going, and then try to land the plane nice and smoothly. Like you guys kind of like you take off, or I don't know, how would you describe it?
Yeah, a lot of
I'll let you
pre-production.
answer this one,
Yeah, a lot of pre-production because the more you do beforehand, the better the shoot
Yes.
goes. That's what we always say. Like,
I've learned that too.
and Nick is
Especially
super
when you're
organized.
working with people. Because like you
Yeah.
work with, I used to do more, but you still currently work a lot with people. So you
Yeah.
have to be in communication with them to prep them for that production day.
Yeah.
And that definitely takes a lot, especially if they're reading a script. Maybe they're the ones who wrote the script and you kind of have to fine tune it with them to make sure they're comfortable reading their own words, that type of thing.
Yeah, like I'm working with a new client, doing a pro bono shoot for a client. And I was like, here are some bullet points to write a script. And they sent me the script back and
It's horrendous.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. So I'm going to have to like completely take it apart and rebuild
Yeah.
it. But it's a start. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can take this and, run with it. They're also like, we're either going to do an AI voiceover, have someone read it. So it's not like one of them reading it. So I'm like, okay, I can make this, take this and like completely chop it up and they won't be like super offended. I don't think. I'm just going to rework it and say, okay, hey, I think this, reads a little bit better. Let me know if this is okay. So it's a lot of prep work to make sure that, the shoot goes smoothly. But it is like, I think it's similar, a slow build, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling you briefly before we started on the mics here, but so for me, working with products and, my clients aren't on set with me. I'm here by myself or with my other partner working on this stuff. So they don't see exactly what I'm doing. So I really value that pre-production time to get kind of face-to-face Zoom time with them.
Yeah.
So I'll schedule, we had the discovery call, a Zoom call, and then I guess you can call it like a kickoff call. So contract is signed. We hop on another call to just start the preliminary planning process, like sharing ideas of what we think we can do. And then I'll start my own little pre-production process, put together some mood boards, shot listing, examples, things like that. We get on a pre-production call. So that's already 3 calls before the shoot has already happened.
Yeah.
And final pre-production call is me just kind of going over the exact shot list I have for them so they know what to expect more or less. They should already know because of the other calls and stuff we've talked about. And then, afterwards, I'd already told you that ending process, I keep checking in with them. And then, we have a couple of revisions maybe, but then from there, the ending honestly is probably the easier part.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's less of a bumpy landing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
So definitely some parallels, like doing a
Yeah.
lot of upfront work. Yeah, and I think that's just a challenge because a lot of times people will come to me and they're just like, "How does this work? What do we do?" I don't know, like, and you're like, "All right." So, yeah, I feel like in a lot of other service type industries, you kind of have an idea of what to take place, whether because you've seen it in you know, media or entertainment or something like that. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, what, you know, and it's tough too, because it's like sometimes, yeah, I'm like, I go back and forth about having an office someday or having a place where people can come meet. But at the same time, it's like, I like having that kind of organic, like when it comes to me, it comes to me, and I can kind of dive into it. And like sometimes, you know, I'll work late at night just because that's when things are flowing and ideas are going. And yeah, so it's just trying to capture that. I think that's important. So that's cool. Yeah, doing a lot of upfront work is really important. And then like the shot lists and all that stuff, right? Like making sure everyone confirms on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, a lot of pre-production, that's for sure.
Super cool. Awesome.
Anything that you want to add that you feel like we missed? We covered a lot. That was great.
Yeah, no, hopefully I
was
didn't talk
fun.
too much.
No, you were
No,
great.
yeah.
Where can people find you?
Yeah.
So they can find me at Spitfire Design Company. .com, and I think that's my handle too, at Spitfire Design Company. And yeah, that's essentially it. But yeah,
Nice.
Luke Brownell, hit me up, and love to talk to anybody.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. Please rate us 5 stars on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and if you have any branding questions, leave a comment, and we would be happy to get it to Luke. And we'll see you on the next one.
Let's go.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.